So I just have a quick introduction for myself. Xiaolu Guo. I lived my first 30 years in China, so you can see my broken English, you tell. And my background is from storyteller's background. So I'm not quite good theoretical like everyone here, so I'm going to just show a bit of my work, my film work, and read a little bit. But Mark is teasing me, asking me to talk about algorithm, which really made my life last 3 days miserable. Yes, why not? Welcome to this challenge, because I'm a primitive artist, which means really coming from this body artist background in China, in a little village. Grew up with the whole villagers, all my village people, they are artisans. So really it's this kind of solid hand craftsman background. And I think, my living experiences, for example, my father was a fisherman, my family was a fisherman, but my father decided to become a painter. So he took an ink painting brush, started to paint, self-taught. But the idea of art and authenticity is very interesting, because in China, you had in 1970s, 1980s, Andy Warhol rewritten your art history. But in China, it's only coming up in the last 20 years. The artwork become strange, grotesque, become political, become abstract. Indeed, they use lots of computer science to create artwork, write poetry or do the paintings, and the cinema as well. So it made me think, what's the relationship between art and authenticity in the computer age? And again, I thought of my father's generation, grew up in a village like me. During the Cultural Revolution, my father, all the Chinese ink painters never had Western training, but all the Chinese ink painters in one night, because during the revolution, we had to paint in the Western way, so we have to paint perspectives, like great ladies here, perspective like Caravaggio's work, like Da Vinci's work, because we didn't come from that shadow light training perspective body anatomy background. So all the ink brush painters had to learn in one night. Like Mark asked me to do algorithm, 3 days ago. So I had to learn in 3 days. And I remember my father's generation, they had to learn, anatomy, the body science, the muscle, the body portion, all that, within a few hours, because the whole Cultural Revolution demands those traditional ink painters to throw away the ink pen, use Western painting brush, and use your kind of ink, which is kind of whatever watercolor, oil color, to start the solid figurative painting, which was not there in the Chinese traditional painting, which is devoid of human figure, devoid of the figurative paintings, pure landscape without any narrative or political dimension. It was never a Bible culture, by the way, in certain area of the world. So we don't know, who that great figure was, and now we know. Jesus Christ. But anyway, so a few years ago, so my life is writing novels. I used to write a novel in Chinese and now write in English, and I make documentary films and fiction films. And 2 years ago, I went to this little village in China, south part, towards Hong Kong, in Shenzhen. And in this village, it's called Dafeng village. So if you pass Shenzhen, Hong Kong, you will see this village. There's 3,000 people there. Everybody villager, everybody peasant background. But it's a famous village, everyone self-trained to paint, to copy the Western classical art. So the Renaissance art, the Caravaggio in 1 day, Da Vinci, Mona Lisa in 2 hours. But Monet, Van Gogh, too easy. So when I was, there, they said, oh, I can sell you cheaply. If you want Van Gogh, my wife can do it in an hour, And then I said, maybe, do you know Renoir? Because they are kind of simple artisan peasant, and grandpa, grandma, Renoir. And they said, which Renoir? It's two Renoir. So I said, well, what about Renoir? Picnic on the, the ones, the nature, the picnic one. And they said, is this one, that one? And then they said, oh, that my grandma maybe can do it. Can you wait for 3 hours? We can do it exactly the same. And so something like that. So then I decided to get a painter to paint a very complicated one, a piece of artwork from Caravaggio called Senjong in the Wood, Senjong in the Wilderness. So if you might see the trailer now, it's just this beautiful, probably 16th century, probably beautiful young gay boy, in the woods. Caravaggio was fancying, and so this painting, the artisan peasant man didn't know this painting, so he said, "Oh, it looks like there are some shadows, lies. I have to handle it in 2 days. Can you wait for 2 days? I will give you the original, the same size copy 2 days later." So I just waited there, made a film around the whole process of painting. And eventually this painting was bought by one of my friends in London, actually, an artist. And he bought because he was in love with his Caravaggio, this particular painting. So he bought this painting all the way, shipped to London. And then I filmed that painting being, put up in his flat in London, in East London. And also I followed the process of his dissatisfaction. Looking at that painting, was deeply depressed, disturbed by how bad the reproduction is, and criticized every day. And then he hired another one, another Western painter, to repaint on top of the reproduction in his living room. So why I say this? Because I thought it's a little idea to draw you in to the discussion of art and authenticity in this age. And of course, 100 years ago, what Miami wrote this essay, Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. And that time, 1920s, the cinematic art, the film camera already announcing, look, there's no more one single hand producing the artwork. A film work is the collaboration of hundreds, thousands of people, the accidental result and the arranged result. So I think the camera, the invention of the video camera, the movie camera, is something really fundamental and violent to challenge the idea of this one single mind creating this one single masterpiece, and yet the second one is not authentic, So, but then I guess for us, people from China, when we enter the National Gallery, we look at the thousands of paintings on Jesus Christ. We always ask the same question. So which interpretation we should look at? And how do you evaluate one Jesus Christ painting in Da Vinci's work is great, or in later artists, Francis Bacon's work, the Jesus Christ looked so kind of postmodernized, anguished, so painful, or even kind of it's almost the anti-aesthetic, in my Chinese eye. So it's very strange, because there's no original image of the Christ, yet Christ is being portrayed, reproduced in all sorts of artistic and non-artistic ways. So it made me think about the art in this age, the reproductive age, and also algorithm with computer science. How do we see the modern art? I mean, this already is a crisis. When Duchamp put the toilet seat in the gallery already, I think it's huge crisis of how do we think about it in the new age. But anyway, I think I'm just going to show 3 minutes of the trailer of this film, and then we continue a little bit. Yeah.
I'm very impressed, Steve. And I'm very glad. Now I will sleep with Caravaggio in my room. I love that. I mean, at least for a few days, you know? Because now it has to stay here, no? To dry?
I think so. You can't really roll it up.
No. Oh my God. So I think I'm just gonna put the sofa here and sleep alongside St. John. Oh my God. Because I think, oh my God. I mean, look. Isn't it a beautiful thing? You know? I just feel asleep. But it's even as this painting is becoming my dream, actually. My dream is like being concrete material by this painting. In the wilderness. I'm St. John in the wilderness.
So, so you can see, actually, I was trying to make some conversation about art and spirituality, of course. And you see this French photographer, the nudist artist in the film. So the film is quite complex. It's about the labor market, cheap labor market in China, actually in every single village. If you go inside China, you see how intense they produce the Western stuff, including the artwork. And those artwork could be hanging everywhere. You couldn't see very, of course, with our eyes, maybe we say, well, that's quite good, not great enough, but it's reproduction anyway. So I try to sort of ask a question of what is the way we are looking for, in the artwork, our projection of beauty and the authenticity. But on the other hand, you see this nudist artist. Throughout the film, he tried to become St. John in the woods, in the wilderness. So he's a Frenchman, completely hippie person. And so it's this kind of narrative thread through his physicality, his nudity in the nature. And I try to discuss, how a body, especially the male body, the masculine beauty, the youth of that, because Caravaggio, that time, the boys he painted in his classical paintings, it's all about the beauty of youth and the violence of when the youth dies, and the violence of the aged body, and how the male projection of its own power. So that was a discussion for that film. And come back to the algorithm. So I was just writing new paragraph yesterday because I think the thinking is naive in my head as a Chinese narrative writer. So I wrote down those words, and I'm going to read aloud. It's just 2 pages. And they are elusive and childish, especially for you guys. It's a language of your current culture, which I try to adapt from very primitive artist background. But these are my thinking, and I don't think we have time to discuss, but attack me during the lunchtime, please. And these are thinking really raised, from this film, the last film, and I wrote about it in my novel as well, the last novel called Lover's Discourse, is about authenticity, and is these ideas completely traditional, classical, overrated even, and the misogynized, completely is this kind of saint. Art replaces religion, basically, as if we can't live without the idea. Can we? Can we live without art? Oh, we can't. Or can we live without nature? Or can we? So, and what is that sublime of that? And what computer will do? Organisms are a bundles of algorithms. Well, at least that's one contemporary view. Yes, human emotions and feelings are complex, But at the bottom, they are the systems for calculating behavioral response to our environment and honed over millions of years of evolution. On this view, falling in love, speaking in a particular language, or making a life decision are just a consequence of a multitude of algorithms. And we may think we have control over these calculations, but the algorithms do the work regardless of our will and in ways we cannot fathom. Computers can replicate perfectly these inner algorithms that drive us. They just need enough power and data and AI. And maybe this is just a reductionist point of view, but I'm not sure we can ignore it completely, because there's no mystery anymore in seemingly emotional choices or impulsive decisions. And there's no longer anything surprising in our behavior. Of course, quote unquote, surprising, impulsive is all quoting unquote. The calculating system in our mind and our body precedes us, as language precedes us. We're born with language awaiting us. Language speaks of us. Whether a child speaks her first sentence at the age of 2 or 4, we cannot choose not to speak of it. And just like Martin Heidegger said, man acts as though he were the shaper and the master of language, while in fact, language remains the master of man. And doesn't this way of conceiving of humanity destroy the notion that humans possess a mystical canal, an undefinable inner spirit that allows us to fall in love, that appreciate poetry and revel in nature? Well, this view also tears down the concept of an individual as a self-governing, autonomous agency, with the idea that we are beings with our souls or with a sovereign freedom is completely destroyed and uprooted. And Jean-Paul Sartre's "men are condemned to be free" seems to be a total illusion. But if all this is true, can artificial algorithms write poetry or create art? Yes, of course, surely they did, and they have done so. The scientists already proved that. But will these poems and artworks have the mark of genuine authenticity? And will there be an authorial signature conveyed by a work produced that an algorithm has masterminded? And will there be an algorithmic polymath or geniuses such as Da Vinci, Zhang Heng, and William Blake or Goethe? Well, maybe I'm asking the wrong questions here. Perhaps my questions come from a romantic age, when the science of social engineering was not dominant at all, and in the current society. So I might get two responses of this question. One response is that there is no authorship and no authenticity at all. That's because there's no sovereign individual inside who express themselves in works of grandeur and beauty. We all believe there's this genuine, amazing artist there express a single, unique point of view. Really, do we? Or are we programmed of this amazing, programmed evolution, actually? The individual is just a particular container of a set of combined information, even though that's immense. And another response I might get from this question is, we should be very creative about the very notion of authenticity. And we should be free and liberated from the idea of authenticity. What a crap idea. We are only ever algorithms. And what we have been calling authentic has only ever been the play of these algorithms. And poetry is a play of algorithmic complexity. And so are the different colors of flowers, different patterns of leaves and trees. Isn't that equally impressive and marvelous? John Keats wrote a poem, Lamia, includes a very well-known line about the code philosophy tries to unweaving a rainbow because he was very angry. So he attacked Isaac Newton, saying, well, Newton, you're that kind of scientist, you unweave the rainbow, the rainbow just become meaningless atoms. And that's awful. That's killing of the imagination, Keats claimed. So he thinks, therefore, all the beauty and the mystery are lost and destroyed for the rules and the lines. So some older romantics also thought that the great scientist Newton had unweaved the rainbow and reduced all the colors of the world to the gray atoms. It was unbearable for them to imagine invisible atoms bounding around in void, and they attacked science, taking away enchantment. But why can't we see how strangely and beautifully the world is composed together with atoms and particles? Do we understand them at all? Then again, who said that the atoms are just materials? What is proof an atom is a material? So, one wanders into the future science is also part of the wonder to our spirituality. Now, what then of spirituality, of our ultimately hopes, of redemption, of meaning? We are the meaning machine, as if we can't live without big meaning. Can we? Maybe we can live without this big meaning. We can, why not? All these Zen Buddhist monks lived. Anyway, so maybe we can live in an algorithmic world, but that does not take away its mystery of life. And in fact, it may deepen it. So to realize how complex you are or I am, and how every thought, every feeling, sensation is a product of a myriad of calculations, it's beyond our grasp. And we shall never look at a staggering body walking on a dirty pavement in a gloomy winter day is a very sad scene. On the contrary, it is utterly bewildering and mysterious. This I wrote yesterday on the train. Thank you.